Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where we explore the incredible world of technology and the fascinating people behind it. And today we have a unique guest with an unconventional path to business success. Forget about business degrees, accounting. What we're talking about here is a passion for improv theatre that propelled our guest to the top of global software business. His name is Don Schuerman, the Chief Technology Officer at Pega, which is a global software firm with high-profile customers such as the Lloyds Banking Group, Booking.com and the UK government. And his secret weapon isn't just his technical expertise, which he has in abundance, it's a love for theatrical improv. So I wanted to learn more about how that background has helped him and his colleagues make better business decisions. So in today's episode, we'll dive into the business value of improv as a hobby and how theatrical improvisation skills can sharpen curiosity and collaboration capabilities needed to thrive in the world of business and tech. And with the introduction of OpenAI's ChatGPT, I think right now many organisations are wondering where to start with AI automation. So I'm hoping Don will share insights on which functions can have the most significant impact on the customer journey and where to find the most value in moving towards autonomy, and how all these worlds that I've just talked about have collided for today's guest and have helped him and everyone at Pega, of course, and how it leads to a constant state of being open to new ideas. It's a real refreshing conversation for me, this one, so buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Boston in the US, where we're going to explore the fascinating intersection of technology, business and improvisation with Don. Welcome to the show, Don. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
I'm Pegasystems CTO and Vice President of Marketing and Technology Strategy. I've got close to 26 years working with Pega, our technology and our clients. And what I really focused on is sort of connecting our technology to our customers in the market. I sort of have one foot in the technology side and the technology strategy direction. And me and my team spend the other 50% of our time really trying to engage directly with clients, markets, analysts, so that we really understand what the needs are that are out there and ensure that we're putting both the right technology and the right story around that technology to deliver on what they need.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And we do have a tradition on the show. I always begin by asking the guest about their origin story, because very often I find, especially after 2,300 plus interviews, very, very seldom did anybody say, I want to start in technology. And today, here in 2023, you are the CTO of the global US software firm Pega, or Pegasystems, which counts Lloyds Banking Group, Booking.com and the UK government as some of its biggest customers. But when I was doing a little research before you came on, I read that you entered senior management with a secret passion for theatrical improv for paying audiences. So there's a lot to unpack there. So can I ask that you share that origin story with me?
Sure. I when I was in college, I started doing improv comedy with the group. My mother's Fleabag at Boston College, which is where I went to school. And as I left school, I graduated with a degree in physics and philosophy, and they weren't really hiring a lot of philosophers. But in 1997, you pretty much could get a job in technical support anywhere. And I had worked for the help desk at school. That had been my sort of, beer money going out money job while I was at school. And so coming out, I got a recruit call and an opportunity to go start working at Pega, doing was essentially support and some degree of implementation and delivery with clients. And at the same time, I auditioned for a group called Improv Boston and started performing there as part of their main stage cast on my Friday and Saturday evenings, basically, and ended up being involved with Improv Boston for close to 20 years. My wife, we met when we were both performers at Improv Boston, so have a large portion of my personal life tied up in that. And without ever really intending to, I think I was building up some really useful skills to help me kind of grow in my job. I ended up eventually working inside of engineering at Pega. And one day at one of the engineering all hands calls, our senior leader mentioned that they were looking for people who would be interested in helping supporting sales, going and explaining how our technology worked to clients. And I always liked being in front of audiences and talking to people and felt pretty comfortable doing that. So I raised my hand, and that kind of opened a whole new world of the technology career path to me. Eventually I ended up leading large portions of our technical pre-sales teams and architecture teams, and eventually was taking on the role of being the field CTO and to represent Pega from a technology perspective with senior leaders at our clients. And I don't think any of that necessarily would have happened without those years of experience trying to be funny on stage with a group of friends.
Wow, what an incredible story. And I absolutely love that. And also love how you picked up these useful and unique skills, and how when those worlds collided, it really helps you in your current role too. I'm curious, do you draw on things like improvise, song, dance, comedy routines, etc., to help you and your colleagues make better business decisions in the world of tech today? Are there any examples you can share around how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a big fan of humor, right? And I think one of the reasons that I've been able to work part of my job in just sort of aligning technology and marketing is that over time I've been able to help contribute to maybe some fun or interesting or funny ways of describing what makes how our technology works, what makes it different in a way that not only educates but engages. And I think that's really important. You know, I think perhaps the most important thing that I bring from improv, or try to bring from improv on a daily basis, is the aspects of listening and collaboration. You know, improv is really a team sport, and you learn very quickly as an improviser that one of the worst things you can do is try to be funny.
Yeah.
The most important thing you can do is listen to your fellow performers and be relentlessly curious about what they are saying, so that you can build on top of what they're bringing. And you can use the things that they're saying as an inspiration and provide things that then can inspire them to move the scene or the song or whatever it is that you're doing forward. And I think the other thing you learn from improv is a degree of not taking it too seriously. You know, we love to talk in software about agile concepts and fail fast. And improv is the ultimate fail fast world, right? It's the ultimate, you jump out, you try something. If that doesn't work, you cut or somebody sweeps, so you move to the next thing. Not everything in improv works, and that's okay as long as you're willing to acknowledge, move to the next thing, and keep going. And I think that is also that gives you a confidence and also a willingness not to take yourself too seriously, that I think is also really important.
And how do you think those two worlds complement each other? You know, the worlds of improv and the business value that you offer with technology too.
Well, I think especially today, business, we need to become more and more improvisers.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to somebody about, you know, a client who had a 5-year business plan, business strategy, which, you know, I still think is the way that we operate a lot of businesses. And I think not forward thinking certainly is not important. It is, but I don't think a 5-year plan would have anticipated ChatGPT showing up and disrupting the world.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have anticipated the interest rate crunch we now find ourselves in. I don't think, you know, it would have anticipated the impact of the pandemic and the entirely different working model that we now operate under. And I think a lot of what organizations are learning is the strongest organizations are the most agile. who are building a culture and a technology platform that allows them to continuously learn and continuously change. And, improvisation is all about that. It's about bringing a strong foundation of confidence and an understanding of who you are, what you do, but also being a good enough listener and having the willingness to step into something new that might lead to places you don't always expect.
And I'm glad you mentioned ChatGPT there, because I think it did usher in a matter of months. It gave many the realization that the corporate function will be automated with AI much sooner than they possibly thought of. And dare I say, they needed to improvise, evolve, adapt, and step into the unknown. And for many organizations, the question they're left with is, well, where do we start? Where do we get the most value from moving towards a more autonomous future? Is that something you can expand on too?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT has been fascinating. I just saw a slide from Bessemer Venture Partners. They put out their state of the cloud every year. And one of the things that it showed that was just amazing is ChatGPT got to well over 1 million users far faster than Netflix, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Like it became the fastest growing app in history.
Yeah.
Right. And just the speed of that, I think was really apparent. For those of us who've been in the industry, the actual technology behind ChatGPT has been around for a little bit. Yeah. Like GPT-3 is a couple of years old. There was GPT-2 prior to it. Generative AI technology. We spoke, even in 2019 at our last PegaWorld conference. Rob Walker, our head of AI and decisioning, was actually using the example of AI generating images and not being able to tell a real Rembrandt from a Rembrandt generated by AI. That was 2019. I think what ChatGPT has done has made it so that anybody can put their hands on this technology. And that's brought it to the forefront of the conversation. I think as we think about AI, I think it's really important to understand that AI is not one technology. I think it's very easy for us to sometimes kind of blur AI into this sort of massive kind of blob of things, but it's really distinct and different technologies that do different things well. Generative AI is really good at generating text, images, etc. Natural language processing is really good at taking and structuring unstructured text, finding fields. Voice recognition is really good at turning spoken text into something that somebody can interpret. And so each of these AIs play different purposes. I think we are much, much farther away than anybody, maybe even sometimes people may get excited about, but I think we're much further away from AI running your business.
Yeah.
From end to end. But I think what is going to increasingly happen is AI-powered tools are going to help automate small functions or capabilities or make our employees more efficient, right? We have this concept of what we call the autonomous enterprise. And I think it's a nice metaphor because in much the same way that I don't think we're going to have a completely self-driving car for many decades, when I get in my car today, it can dynamically change the speed of the cruise control as traffic changes. It can warn me if I'm drifting out of my lane or if there's something in my blind spot so that I can be a safer driver. And I think that application of AI to make the employee and customer experience better, to help the business run more efficiently and safer in very specific areas, that's where I think you're going to see the value begin to pop up.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I often look back to November last year and there were futurists, technologists, etc. They were all predicting what the big trends that would dominate 2023 would be. And of course, fast forward only 3 months later and all anyone's talking about is generative AI and ChatGPT. And very few people predicted that in November last year. And it shows you the speed of change and how quickly people can jump on things. So I'm curious, with that in mind, how important is it for business professionals to be open to a world of constant change? And how can improv or improvisation help develop that skill?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential. I think that the rate of change continues to accelerate, and we can't predict what's going to be the next thing on the horizon, whether it's the next new tech or the next disruption or the next bit of economic or societal impact that we have to deal with. So I think building a culture that is comfortable with change and embraces change is important. And as we spoke, I think that's one of the things you get from improv. You get sort of comfortable being in that state of you don't completely have all the answers, but you're going to take a step and try and fail fast and then move to the next thing. But I think the other piece of that is there's also the need of organizations to think about what does a truly agile organization look like? What does the technology platform need to look like? What do the organizational structures that support that need to look like? What are the kinds of culture and skills that they need to prioritize developing inside of their teams so that they actually have the pieces in place to be a self-learning, self-optimizing, we call it an autonomous enterprise? Because I think those organizations that are able to respond fastest to change are going to be the ones that succeed the most as we look into the future.
And I don't expect you to mention any names here, but I'm curious, do you have any client stories or use cases that you can share to bring everything that we're talking about to life today?
Well, one of the clients that we've spoken about a bunch, and they've told this story, at Pega World and other places, is a bank called Commonwealth Bank of Australia.
Yeah.
And, I've learned a bunch by interacting with their executives and seeing some of the things that they're doing. One is they're just incredibly customer focused. So when they think about the application of AI, for example, using decisioning models to figure out the next best conversation to have with the client, they're always putting the client's needs first and foremost, so that it's not just about what they can sell, but what's going to be the right thing for the client, right? And I think that reflects a lot. But I think the other thing is they've been able to respond very quickly to disruptive change, both because of the culture inside the organization, but also because of the technology that they used. So we speak of how quickly we forget and move on to the next thing. But at the beginning of 2020, at the very beginning of the 2020, the big news wasn't COVID. It was all of the wildfires that were spreading across places like Australia. And they were able to very quickly shift the kinds of conversations that they were having with their clients to make sure that when they were talking to clients from areas that had been impacted, the conversation wasn't about, hey, can we get you a new credit card? But what do you need? How can we help? Don't worry, we're there for you, right? And that ability to respond in real time to the shifting needs and the shifting zeitgeist, I think is absolutely essential to maintaining the kinds of tight relationships that organizations want to maintain with their customers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's shifting all the time, and it's such a rapid pace. And there's also a realization that it might never move this slow again. So it further adds to the pressure. And I'm curious, from what you're seeing out there, are there any other tech trends that you're monitoring closely, or just areas that particularly excite you at the moment?
Yeah, as I said, I think this idea of an autonomous enterprise is an ongoing trend that we're really interested in. I think organizations, as you said, everybody is realizing that change is, I hate the term the new normal, but change is accelerating. And the rate of change is not going to slow down. It's only going to get faster. And so organizations need to think about how they operationalize agility into their technology stacks, into their organizational structures, into the skills and culture of their people and their employees. And the autonomous enterprise is all about that. It's how do you assess everything that you're doing in real time so that you're dynamically shifting, whether it's continuously optimizing a process to drive increased efficiency and do more with less, right? Whether it's increasingly personalizing to the unique needs of each and every customer so that you're really having a conversation that's incredibly relevant to the customer. How do you ensure that you're actually aligning what your team members are doing against the business goals of the organization, even as those business goals, sometimes their strategy needs to sometimes shift to handle changes in the economy or changes in the broader market. And I think generative AI, right, which we spoke a little about, plays into that. I think it's just another proof point of how much there is now that can help automate and help drive work. We have a low code platform. And it's really low code for workflow automation and AI-powered decisioning. That's really what Pega is about. And one of the places where we're looking and prototyping with generative AI is around using it to help generate a starting point for a workflow. It turns out that you can ask generative AI to describe a workflow of like, well, what does it look like to apply for a loan in the UK? What are the steps? Generative AI is pretty good at laying out the steps and the starting point. So we've actually embedded some of that directly into our product so that a developer, instead of having to start with a blank sheet of paper, can actually say, I want to start with a loan process for the UK. And they get a starting point that they can work with. And maybe I save them a couple of hours of trying to get that starting point going. Or maybe once they've built that process, I use generative AI to generate test data so that they can plug that workflow they've built into an automated testing program, a DevOps program, and the developer doesn't have to spend a couple hours, filling out an Excel spreadsheet of test data to plug into it. So I think those kinds of use cases of how do we take the power of generative AI, but target it on something that makes somebody more impactful and more effective at their job and shaves away that time they're spending on stuff that might not be as high impact or might not require the kind of judgment and insight that humans still, I think, uniquely bring to problems. I think that's the places where you get organizations moving faster, responding faster, becoming more agile, and moving towards that autonomous, continuously adapting mode of operation.
Such great examples there about how it can make teams work faster. And for me, it's a tool that helps. It complements people, not competing with people. And I always say on this podcast that technology works best when it brings people together. And another thing that I'm passionate about and why I record this every day is I often hear about worlds that you don't always associate with technology colliding with it and opening up a wealth of new opportunities and different ways of working. So looking to the future, I'm curious, how do you see the intersection of things like arts and business and technology evolving? And what opportunities do you see for individuals with, let's say, non-traditional backgrounds to actually excel in the world of business?
So one of the books that I go back to every couple of years, because it was written in the 50s. It was actually a lecture in the 50s by a guy named C.P. Snow. And he gave a lecture in the 1950s called The Two Cultures. And Snow was talking specifically about academia. He was talking about the fact that academia had sort of broken itself into arts and humanities silo and a sciences and tech silo. And the people in the arts and humanities didn't know how to talk the math language of science and tech. The people in science and tech weren't really paying any attention to the deeper philosophical questions of the technology that they were building. And that gap was ultimately bad for society. And I think in many ways we still see remnants of that in the way we talk about business and IT, or we talk about left brain, right brain, creative, technical. And I think as we move into the future, the best leaders are going to be the ones who can have one foot in the technology and one foot in the business. If the truism that every company is a software company, which I still think has lots of truth to it, Well, then the leaders of those companies at least have to understand in some level how to use software to drive business value. They have to have an understanding of what all of this AI stuff really does under the covers, so that the way that they can apply it can be ethical, can be responsible, but can also actually deliver real results for the business. And I think the flip side is also true. The building technology for technology's sake without tightly coupling it to the business goal, the business outcome, is no longer going to be necessary or valued inside organizations. CIOs, increasingly more and more of the infrastructure side of technology is moving to the cloud, which means CIOs really are about, how do I take that technology and push it and make it valuable to the business, tied to the value it delivers. So I think we're going to see more and more folks with less traditional backgrounds or cross-functional backgrounds, or business people stepping into IT people stepping into more traditional business leadership positions, because I actually think it's the convergence of the two that the real value happens.
100%, man. I think it also increases diversity of thought and allows everyone to see things from multiple perspectives. And that's so important, not only in the workplace and solving problems, but also serving a diverse audience out there. And a big theme of our conversation today has been about improvising and adapting to the speed of technological change. And there is this real pressure on everyone to be in a state of almost continuous learning. So I've got to ask, where or how do you self-educate? Anything you can pass on to the listeners around that?
Well, I think I always view self-education as starting with a commitment to curiosity. I think lots of folks were and still watching the show Ted Lasso.
Yes,
at the beginning of the pandemic, and I think there's a great episode where he talks about the important lesson of life is be curious, be curious about other people, right? To your point of diversity of thought, be curious of people who come maybe from backgrounds different than yours. Be curious about new technology. I find that my continuous learnings come from going down rabbit holes of things that I've seen, but I was like, boy, I don't really know much about that. Let me go Google that. Let me go ask ChatGPT to tell me a little bit more about that. And keeping that kind of either running list or a set of things that as you go across your daily life, where are the things that pique your interest, that make you go, man, I'd never heard that before, or wow, I don't think I really understand that fully. And committing to chasing those rabbit holes down, I think leads us to filling in that kind of richness. And I think the amazing thing is now we have these tools, whether it's Google or ChatGPT, or I can ask Alexa, finding the information becomes much, much easier. So it's really now on us to continuously sort of chase down those places. And obviously you need to, follow smart people on LinkedIn, see what they're posting about, keep up with the news and the press. I try to not just read the business news and the tech news. I think it's really interesting to see how more general news, places like the New York Times, have been covering AI and ChatGPT, because I think it gives you a reminder of the perspective for people who don't spend 10, 12 hours a day thinking about this stuff. What's that perspective coming? And I think that's an important perspective for us in the tech world to take in as well.
Yeah, many people often ask me on this podcast, what traits do tech leaders share from every single person you've interviewed? And curiosity is always up there. Being curious about people and things and wanting to explore and ask questions. It is an underrated ability. It really is. And I've loved chatting with you today. I could chat with you for hours on this topic. But for anyone listening that would like to dig a little bit deeper on all the things you're doing at Pega and maybe keep up to speed with the things that you're doing, or even contact your team, what's the best starting point for everyone to learn more?
Well, obviously Pega.com. Right. So, feel free to check that out. We've got some really interesting stuff on there right now about some of the things we're doing around generative AI, about the autonomous enterprise. We've got our annual user conference, PegaWorld, coming up in June, which you can learn about at pega.com or pegaworld.com. And again, we'll be going into a lot of those. You can check out Pega on LinkedIn, or you can check out me on LinkedIn at Don Schuerman. And as I come across things that I think are interesting, I try to keep posting there and keep a little bit of a discussion going there as well.
Well, as I said, love chatting with you today about everything really, from OpenAI's recent introduction of ChatGPT, giving businesses the realization that everything is to explore automation and AI and where they start, etc. But for me, it's your origin story as well, understanding the business value of improv as a hobby and how theatrical improvisational skills that you picked up actually sharpened up your curiosity and collaboration capabilities, and all those things are so essential to be successful in business today. So thank you for taking the time to sit down with me, share your story. Love to stay in touch with you, see where things continuously evolve this year. Who knows what we'll be talking about next year. But thanks again for joining me today, Don.
Oh, it was a great conversation. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks for joining another episode of Tech Talks Daily. I hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation with Don today, and especially his unique journey to business success and tech success through a passion of improvisation, or improv. And today, I think we discovered the business value of improv as a hobby and how it can help sharpen things like curiosity, collaboration, and also the potential of AI, automation, generative AI, and especially around transforming various corporate functions and actually enhancing the customer journey and complementing human skills of the existing workforce. And also great to hear about embracing improv and how it's helped them accept constant change and treat it as something as exciting and interesting rather than daunting, confusing and scary. Because anything that helps anyone be more open to new ideas in this ever-evolving world of technology that's continuously changing has to be a great thing. And as always, I appreciate your support, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's conversation. So please, send me an email, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilC.Hughes, and don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the episode if you enjoyed today's show. But that's it for today, so until next time, stay curious, embrace the unexpected, keep exploring the fascinating world of technology, and until next time, don't be a stranger.